Hey guys, I'm really excited to show you this. It didn't turn out perfect. It didn't quite turn out how I wanted it to turn out, um, in any way, shape, or form. But the fact of all the stuff the problem solving and stuff like that I had to come up with to make this, I'm very excited about it, just because it opens up so many new doors. It's not exceptionally pretty, well, at least the sheath. But here we go. Don't know what I'm going to call this yet. So if you guys have ideas, let me know. It's got the bloodwood handle scales with brass tubes for pins. A leather-lined kydex sheath with the same brass tubes as rivets. Chisel ground. The nice wedge on the top. I left the heat treat scale on there. The handle was not buffed. It was brought up to 220, and then I put Danish oil on it. Not mirror polish, just a nice satin. I think it's also 220. That's a little bit higher than 220. I'm not exactly sure which one it is. By no means is this perfect. You can see. See if I can get it to focus for me. There we go. Got some file marks still in there that I couldn't get out without changing that nice round, so I left them in there. You can see right here, right there, I couldn't quite get all the scaling off without changing that, so I left it there. Same with right here. The top of the spine is still, the scaling still on there, but the spine throughout the handle has been sanded clean. There are no gaps in the scales, the steel to the scales, which I'm very happy about. I was a bit concerned. The handle is shaped very comfortably. It's a bit small for my hand still, so this would be for somebody with a little bit bigger hands or smaller hands, I'm sorry, or likes to kind of slide back on a knife. Sorry, that got out of frame. And this is the sheath. Now I know it's not very pretty because I had to do some last minute things to it that I didn't really want to do. Mainly their aesthetics. The sheath works perfectly fine. The big thing is this leather. This knife has so many bellies and waves and rounds to it that I didn't want to put it in kydex for fear of scratching off the scale, the heat treat scale, and just scuffing up the blade in general. So I decided I was going to make a leather sheath. We had an old leather jacket that nobody used, that was already torn. So I cut a piece out of that and realized the leather was much, much too thin. I should have thought of that before. However, it was thin enough to where I thought I could line a sheath with it. So after a lot of thinking of how I was going to do that, it's exactly what I did. I molded the kydex around the leather, drilled holes straight through everything and went to put my rivets in. And when I did that, I realized I forgot one major thing. The rivets are specifically made for this size kydex, and they will only fold over. They don't have any extra space. So I was stuck with a sheath that now had holes in it. I didn't want to waste the leather. I didn't want to waste the kydex. I didn't want to waste the time I worked into it, or I put into it. So I took my copper tubing and I cut off little pieces of it, and I took a vise and I stuck a ball peen hammer in the vise, cranked it down, and took another ball peen hammer and I countersunk each one of these on both sides, and then I laid one side on the ball peen hammer, and then I hit it on the top side with the ball peen hammer. And I think it came out really, really cool. It's not finished. Well, it's finished, but it's not refined. It's not exceptionally pretty. But the satisfaction of figuring something like that out without seeing somebody else do it or something like that really made me happy. The other thing that happened that I had to figure out was the leather collapsed inside. Luckily, I saw this before I cut it all flush. So I folded it, I pulled it tight, and then I folded it back over the sheath like you see it now. And I was just going to leave it like that, kind of loose, and I decided I was going to epoxy it. So I put a little bit of epoxy on there and epoxied it down. Unfortunately, it slid a little bit while it was set, so you can see the epoxy's here. And it's holding up. It stays. It stays nice and tight. The knife slides in easily and comes out easily, but there's no shake. This knife isn't going anywhere. It just could look a little bit prettier. Perhaps on a later sheath I'll make sure this is nice and rounded, or give myself a little bit more so I can cut it at an angle that complements the knife, and make these edges longer so I can fold it over further so I have almost like an entire necking, or whatever you would call that. I finished this knife as well as the Duchess on Sunday. Monday I finished the sheaths and the epoxy had to dry, and yesterday I was not necessarily in the mood to do a YouTube video, so I waited till today. Please let me know what you guys think. I have to say that the leather-lined idea came from Doberman knives, yet again. Originally I started off with this knife. I was going to make a steampunk knife myself after seeing his steampunk knife and loving it. But as you can see, it's evolved into something much, much different. But I still liked his leather-lined copper sheath. So I leather-lined a kydex sheath. But I definitely will give him credit for that because he is what inspired me to do that. Also, this pin was a little bit of an afterthought. I was going to do 2 and 2, and then I realized the leather was kind of pushing everything too wide, so I had to add another one in there. But as you'll see, I'll add it in the end of this one. This knife lines up with those 3 holes, which, by luck of the draw, if you will, it works, and it comes up with a really cool piggyback design. Alright guys, I hope I didn't bore you too much with that. The video got kind of long. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I should make another one similar to this. And if so, what I should do different, what I should add, what I should take away. Give me ideas, anything like that. And just like before, guys, Always aspire to be more. Always keep trying. Always try to make each thing you make better than the last one, no matter how good the last one was. Hey guys, I want to show you this before I showed you each knife separately. I thought this was kind of cool how it worked out. This rivet hole and this rivet and those two rivets ended up lining up nicely, so I could lash them together in this little double piggyback style thing, if you will. They both still come out easily, and it's not flush or anything by any means, but it's kind of a cool way to carry it on your belt. Your belt slides through here, and it's like in the small of your back or on your side or whatever. I just thought that was cool and fun to play around with. Might see how comfortable it is when I'm working with these knives, but I'll probably put this at the end of the video for this guy, because I'm going to do 2 separate videos. Just wanted to show you that real quick. As always, aspire to be more.